Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. I'm Nandini. Today we are going to have a look at three games in particular. These three games because this is what I woke up today, and these three games were played at the Checkmate COVID Celebrity Edition of India's biggest chess fundraising event held on chess.com. And Vishy was actually playing a simultaneous against these celebrities, five at a time. He had two batches of players. And well, these players, all the three were in the first batch. And it's really sad to see that this happened and Vishy had to go through this. And of course, he knew that this was going on. But anyway, we'll talk about this later on in the video. I'll put forward my thoughts honestly at the end of the video. Anyway, we're going to go through these games and we're going to see how talented these players are and how well they did. And well, we're going to check out their brilliancies. Let's begin. And yes, I forgot to mention that Vishy Anand, also known as Vishwanathan Anand, is a living legend and five-time world chess champion. Just had to put that out there. And yeah, you're going to have a look at games played between him and his opponents who are equally strong. And yeah, the timestamps of the games are put in the description so that you can check out whichever games you want to check out. If you already checked one game, you can check out the other. And let's begin. This is the end position to where Vishy actually resigned in this game. So let's actually have a look at this game right from the beginning. NF3, E5, and we have a blunder on move number one. This is so-called the Ross Gambit, but I don't know what kind of gambit it is. White just wins the pawn with knight e5 and black has no compensation whatsoever. So anyway, d6 was played, knight f3, knight c6, d4. Now these are just normal common moves. They're just taking control of the center, developing their pieces and just following regular opening principles. Knight f6, d5, a very thematic move in these positions where the opponent has not placed his pawns on one of the central squares. So you can push the pawn, you not only attack the knight, but you gain space advantage and more squares for your pieces, as you will see in the game. Knight e5, knight c3, bishop e7, e4, castling, bishop e2, just simple development of pieces. And c6, again, another thematic move in these positions because white has great control of the center and black is trying to break the center with a move like c6 and hoping for Vishy to capture d into c6, but obviously he's not going to capture and give away the center. So he just castles, and after c into d5, he keeps the center with e into d5. And after a6, which is again a very nice move because black is trying to get control of squares on the queen side, basically trying to get some space advantage on the queen side, probably after b5 and have some play there. So rook e1, developing the rook, b5 was played. So here Anand played this move a3, just a waiting move, I believe, and also stopping any threats of b4 in the future, and maybe having some ideas of this in the very future. But okay, keeping that aside, black plays this move h6 again, I think creating a flight square and maybe taking control of these squares, but I don't really think white has a threat of that. But yeah, that was played. And here Vishy goes with this move knight e4, which is a very nice move again. Another thematic move in these positions. You have space advantage. You place a knight in the center. In the future, probably has some prospects of knight f5 and knight c6. But yeah, instead of knight d4, bishop f4 would also have been a very nice move. But knight d4 is good too. And bishop d7 was played. Now, bishop b7 seems to be very natural in these positions, you know, keeping an eye on the d5 pawn. But the problem with that would be this f5 square would be left for the knight and white would get a good play on the king side, I believe. So he continued with bishop d7 and the game went bishop f4, developing the bishop, and rook c8, again taking the semi-open file that the rook gets. And here Vishy plays a nice move again, that is bishop f3. A nice move because it not only opens up for the rook and now the knight is attacked, but it improves the bishop position, defends the pawn, and Vishy does not mind giving away the bishop for the knight because this is indeed a bad bishop while this knight is actually a well-placed knight. So this trade of pieces would actually help Vishy. So well, black does not capture, goes with queen b6, develops the queen, connects the rooks, and after bishop into e5, well, he did sacrifice a pawn with this queen b6 move, I forgot to mention. That is, after d into e5, Vishy could have captured rook into e5, but I think that he felt that black would get a good amount of counterplay after this, so he did not capture it immediately. And he goes with knight c6 over here. Now, if black does capture, Vishy can just capture back, and this pawn is well defended, a pass pawn, the bishop's defending, and white is doing great. So here, Nikhil plays this move bishop c5. Not only gets the bishop out of danger, but also attacks this f2 pawn. And now Anand also does a good deed of connecting his rooks, and he plays this move queen e2, also again defending the f2 pawn. Black continues with rook fe8. And here, Anand actually mentioned after the game was over that he should have probably not captured knight into e5, and he didn't really expect this good play after the first move e5, because black didn't really go wrong anywhere in the whole game after that. But anyway, regardless, he went with knight into e5 in this position. And Nikhil played the best move in the position, and that is rook into e5, and after queen into e5. Well, he did sacrifice an exchange, but that was just for one move, because over here black has this move bishop into f2, and there is a double attack again on the board. And king f1 was played, after which bishop into e1. Anand decided to capture with the queen and not get the rook out of the a1 square, so played queen into e1. And here Nikhil actually played a very nice move, and that is this move b4. Now striking on the queen side, as I did mention earlier that was his plan. And after a into b4 came queen into b4, and now you see black's pieces are just activating themselves. And the white king is slightly in the open, as you notice, so not the greatest of squares for the white king. But yes, the pawn's being attacked. The rook is now, open, and the bishop will also come to life with bishop b5 in the future. So not looking great for Vishy in this position, and he had to play this move rook a2. Poor rook has to sit defending the b2 pawn. Well, he had no choice. And the game continued, bishop b5 check. And here, the point is, white cannot capture knight into b5, I believe. I'm just noticing it now, actually. So after knight into b5, I think there is queen c4, and there would be a fork or a double attack on the board. I think that's the case over here. But anyway, he did not do it, therefore. So he continued with knight e2 in the game. And black goes queen d6, does not want to trade queens. He goes queen d6. So here, the queen not only attacks the h2 pawn, but the d5 pawn is also attacked, and also the c2 pawn is attacked. So there are lots of threats on the board. And Vishy played this move king g1. Of course, you want to defend the pawn that is closer to your king. And that's what he does, defends the h2 pawn. So here the game continues, rook into c2, and well, the rook has reached the 7th rank or the 2nd rank, and now this rook is super dangerous. So Vishy continues with knight c3, blocking the rook, attacking the bishop, and also opening up for the queen. And the game goes bishop d7. He saves his bishop, and Vishy continues queen e3, probably just improving the queen position and taking control of c1. And bishop g4. Now this is a really good move, because if you play this move bishop g4, you got to see the whole the consequences, I mean the whole continuation. And well, Nikhil did see it, so he played this move bishop into g4, and after knight into g4 came queen e8 check. We should not forget that there are checkmate threats with queen h2 here. So came king h7 and queen e4. Oh wow, wait, there's a double attack or a fork on the board. But well, Nikhil does not care, and he goes with this move g6, which is the best position on the board, guys. The best move on the board, I mean. And yeah, I mean, after playing these moves, okay, we'll just go forward. G6 was played. He gives up his knight, and after queen into g4 comes this queen c5. King f1 is not possible because of queen f2, so he plays this move king h1, after which rook c1 was played, and there is a back rank weakness on the board. And after knight d1, queen d5 was played, and the knight's falling or the rook's falling, or yeah, white is actually losing material but has just 13 seconds on the clock, so he could have easily been flagged by Vishy. But Vishy, the gem of a person he is, the sportsman he is, how ethical he is, decided to resign in this position and not go to flag or just win the game on time. So yeah, I mean, this was a game against Nikhil, and I just want to mention one small thing here. As I mentioned earlier, this bishop g4. If you do play bishop g4, you got to see the whole continuation. And if you do notice the time on the clock, after queen e8, king at 7, and after queen e4 check, and after playing g6 again in a few seconds, and after queen g4 has been played, you just cannot take 4 minutes or 3-4 minutes for this queen c5 move, because it's obvious if you've played the whole continuation, you've got to play queen c5 in this position. That's that's the only continuation you have in these positions. But anyway, um, let's actually hop on to the next game now. c4, e5, knight c3. We have the English opening on the board. Knight f6, knight f3, knight c6, g3, bishop c5. Now these are all natural moves, normal moves. Bishop g2, both sides are developing their pieces. Castling, rook e8, d3, d6, a3, and here Sajid decides to play this move a6, which is a really nice move because you keep a square for a bishop in the future if it is ever attacked, which it is attacked on the very next move after b4, and bishop a7 is played. The bishop may look to be in a corner, but it's actually looking at the f2 pawn, and it's a really good piece in there. And a bishop g5 was played, h6, and bishop into f6, queen into f6, and knight d2, opening up the g2 bishop and probably trying to play knight d5 or knight e4. Bishop d4 was played, knight d5, queen d8, and I should say Sajid actually has really good chess knowledge and very good knowledge about opening theory, and yeah, very good understanding of the position. Rook c1 was played, and knight e7. Again, trying to get rid of the d5 knight because white's knight is really strong at the center of the board. So Vishy continues with this move e3. And just to let you guys know, bishop b2, bishop into a3 will not work for black in this position. It looks like you are winning a pawn, but the bishop gets trapped on a3. For example, bishop b2, let's just say the rook moves to b1. There is bishop into a3. But queen b3 just traps the bishop, and the bishop would be trapped in there. So anyway, the game goes bishop a7, knight c3. Vishy does not want to trade the knights, gets a knight back. And here the move c6 is played, which is again a nice move because it blocks the bishop. As you see now, the bishop is getting blocked on that diagonal. And probably it's also time for the bishop to develop in now. So knight b3, bishop e6, rook e1. As you see, both sides are just, manuring the pieces and developing the pieces to good squares. And both the players have really good understanding of the game. So queen d7, queen d2. Both the sides have connected their rooks, and now we have got to the middle game. So rook c8, and got the rook, developed the rook on the c file. And here Vishy plays queen b2. Is again maneuvering his pieces. Probably he has ideas of playing on the queen side, which I believe he does with b5, c5, and let's see what really happens in the game. So bishop h3 was played, getting rid of the fianchetto bishop, and we know that this is the way you play when your opponent does fianchetto. So bishop into h3, queen into h3. Vishy goes knight e4, centralizing the knight and also having a threat of knight d6, capturing a pawn and forking the rooks, or double attack on the rooks. And he supports it with rook c d8 and c5. Again, a nice move by Vishy because it blocks the bishop, you get more space advantage, and you're also attacking the d6 pawn. And Sajid, the class of the player he is, goes with knight c8. And after c into d6, knight into d6, Vishy continued rook e d1 because now the rook is actually blocked on this file, has nothing to do. So he repositions his rook and takes it to the d file. Again, he does not mind knight into e4, d into e4 because that would still be good for white. So black goes with this move f5, which is a very nice idea in these positions. He's going for a kingside attack. And after knight into d6, rook into d6, knight c5, Vishy gets his knight to a nice outpost. And after bishop into c5, pawn into c5. Yes, the rook is attacked, the pawn is attacked. So Sajid defends both of them with rook d7. And here Vishy goes with queen e2. And now in this position, Sajid plays a really good move in this position, and that is queen g4. I was like, wow, this move is really good. Positionally a very good move, because after queen into g4, which was played in the game, comes f into g4. And you see this pawn is actually super strong in this position because it kind of takes care of three white pawns over here, stopping the advance of three of white pawns. And not only that, the rooks also get an open file, and the f2 pawn can be targeted in the future and will be targeted in the future. So Anand decides that it's time to get his king into the game, and yeah, the position is actually completely equal even right now. So goes with king f1, black goes with e4, d4, rook to d8, everything's fine. King e2, king h7, rook b1. And now after this, I mean, it's about, going to be 34, 35 moves. And this is where actually Sajid starts faltering, because, well, after king g6, Anand goes rook b6. Well, we know this happens because you want to actually double on the b file and try to take advantage of the b file and the b7 weak pawn. And yeah, this is where Sajid actually falters, and he's not having that great of endgame knowledge, I should say. So he played this move rook b8, and how should he have defended this rather? Let me show you. He should have played something like rook f8, get to the open file, the f file, and then probably rook f7 to keep this b7 pawn defended. And I do not see a way of how white is actually going to progress in this position. Actually, there's no practical, or let's just say there's no proper way, unless black really makes some mistakes or blunders like he did in the game. So he goes with this move rook b8, which is a blunder now, or a mistake, because after rook b1, you see there's a pin. And white has threats of rook a6 or rook c6, and that's what really happened in the game. So king f5 was played, but still there is rook into c6. And if black does capture, then white has won the pawn after rook into b8, and white should be better and should be winning the game after that. So here rook d8 was played, just getting out of the pin and everything. Now has a threat of just capturing the rook. So Anand says, well, I got my rook to the 6th rank. Why not take it to 7th rank, and plays rook c7, again having a double attack on the board. So g6 was played, rook b6 was played, and now the black king seems to be really weak, and there are threats not only on the black pawns, black king, and the black king and the black pawns, but so here h5 was played, rook f7 check, king g5, rook g7, and as you see, this position is now lost. There is a threat of rook into g6, and actually black is getting checkmated, I believe, after rook into king f5 and rook bf6, and I think that's a checkmate. Yeah, it should be. So yeah, this move rook g8 was played, after which Anand just played rook b into g6, and after king f5 just captured the rook, and Sajid resigned after a couple of moves, after 3-4 moves, and this is how the game ended. So yeah, I mean, both the players played really classic moves, but black happened to falter at the end of the game. I think it's time we move on to the next game. d4, d5, bishop f4, and seems like we're having the London system on the board. So knight f6, e3, bishop f5, knight f3, e6, knight bd2, knight bd7, c3, c6, knight e5, knight into e5, bishop into e5, bishop e7, bishop e2 at 6. Well, it's a waiting move, I believe, and maybe a square for the bishop in the future, maybe. So castling, and Anand says, well, now it's time to hit on the queen side. He goes with a4, trying to gain some space on the queen side, and probably having future ideas of a5, a6, probably. So knight d7 was played because the bishop is centralized. Black decides to get rid of it. Sudeep decides to get rid of it, and bishop g3, and he now threatens to open the center with c5. And Anand continues with queen b3, and well, Sudeep defends the b7 pawn very well and plays this move queen b6. And the idea is after queen into b6, knight into b6, and I think black is doing fine. White is also doing fine. It's still an equal position. Vishy continues with a5, knight goes back to d7, a6, as I did mention earlier, that is an idea. So here b6 was played. B into a6 would just lead to a minus position, because then Vishy can just go rook into a6, and with this weak a7 pawn, and the white pieces will just keep entering and black will be having a minus position. So here b6 was played, and here Vishy decides to reposition his pieces, to maneuver his pieces, because the knight on d2 is practically not getting anywhere. So while going to e5 just gets captured. So I think he played this move knight b1 here, probably trying to go on to b5, and maybe he would get in some play after that, also keeping an eye on the a7 pawn. So c4 was played, immediately blocking the queen side and not allowing any more advance on the queen side. So knight a3, and well, the knight does have future prospects. So well, Sudeep decides to get rid of it right away with bishop into e7, because well, this bishop is not doing much. So bishop into e7, bishop e7 into a3. And after rook into a3 comes rook a c8. Now the rook is free. And here f3 was played. Bishop g6, just a prophylactic move, in case any e4 is played in the future, just getting the bishop to safety. And here Vishy says, well, time to get more pieces into the game, and he goes with this move, bishop d1. And bishop d3 was played, immediately taking control of the d3 square and an outpost kind of square labeled to the bishop. So rook e1 was played, and Vishy does have ideas of e4. He still has those ideas, but this bishop is way too strong. He probably would try to get rid of it first. So f5 was played again, well, stopping the c4 idea, and now white cannot go e4. And well, he also had this move knight f6, which I really like, because f5 really, weakens the dark squares even more, but probably does not make too much of a difference here, probably. So bishop e2 was played, trying to get rid of the bishop, and he does after bishop into e2, rook into e2. And knight f6, bishop e5. I think the bishop is actually really good, and this bishop is definitely stronger than the knight in this position. Anyway, so g5 was played. And as you see, Sudeep has a really great understanding of this opening, of the position, of the opening, middle game, and the end game too. So let's go forward. So rook a1. Now Anand says, well, it's time to reposition my pieces again, because the rook is not doing anything on a3. And rook f7, bishop into f6, got rid of it. And after rook into goes e4, and that's the reason he captured bishop into knight, because he wanted to go forward with the e4 push and wanted to get some play on the board. And after f into e4 came f into e4, rook fc8, and well, makes a flight square for the king first, and also stops any g4 pushes with the move h3. And yeah, just to keep in mind, a black capturing pawn into pawn would just be bad for black. It would be weakening for black, because after that, there would be 3 weak pawns on the board, and it would be easy for white to take advantage of black's weak pawn structure. And here rook 8 f7 was played, and yeah, I mean, they're all perfect moves by both black and white over here. Vishy, of course, we can expect, he's 5-time world champion, but Sudeep also played a brilliant move still here, no mistake at all. And after e into d5 came rook a e1, and played king g7. Everything's still in control. Though white does seem to be having a slight upper hand because of the positioning of the pieces, but well, we'll see. Rook e5 now attacking the d5 pawn, and Sudeep says, well, you attack my d5 pawn, I'm going to go rook f2 and attack your b2 pawn, and that happens. And capturing is not the best way, because then the other rook gets into the game, and well, it's not really that good for white. Let's just say what Vishy did is actually really good. Rook 1 e2, keeping things in control. And after rook into e2, of course the rook has got back, but he can go again with rook e5 in the future. And yeah, till here, I mean, everything's fine, everything's in control, but this is where Sudeep goes wrong again in the end game. He has less than 5 minutes on the clock, and yes, he goes with this move b5, and b5 does not really have an idea. I don't really understand, and it just allows rook e5 and targeting the pawns very easily, which Vishy does immediately with rook e5. And after rook e5 came this move rook d7, of course, just supporting the pawn. And Vishy goes rook e6 again. If the king moves, well, I just can capture the h6 pawn. So Vishy just keep on improving his piece position, and now I'm sure he does have ideas of also getting the king into the game in the future. Well, let's see how the game goes. Rook f7. Well, well, maybe he does not need to get the king into the game because the rook can do the job on its own. And Vishy goes with rook d6, attacking the d5 pawn. There's no rook d7 now, so Sudeep has to go rook f5. And after rook d7 check, you either move your king, you give away the a7 pawn, or you give away the d5 pawn, which happens in the game with rook f7, rook into d5, and now b5 is under attack. Now this endgame is actually winning for white. From here it's just winning, but we'll just have a look at a few more moves. Rook f6 was played, attacking the a6 pawn. So rook d7 back. Now again, the king moves. You just pick the a7 pawn, and that's winning for white. So Sudeep goes rook f7. And Anand plays a very nice move in this position, and that is rook b7, because if now black captures, white can just capture a into b7 and queen on the next move, and well, that's winning. So here king g6 was played, and Vishy continues capturing the free pawns, and after rook f6, he goes rook c5. He says, you take the a6 pawn, I take the c4 pawn, and I'll have, two passed pawns, and that's just winning for me. So rook into a6, rook into c4, this is what happens. Rook a1, king f2, get the king towards the center and not in the corner. And a5 was played, rook c5, a4, rook a5, and rook a2. And Anand just goes with king f3 again. You don't really mind giving up the b2 pawn. You get the a4 pawn, and well, you still have two passes here. So, well, that's not a problem. So rook into b2 happened, rook into a4, rook c2, and well, after this, it's just a matter of technique and a few more moves. I'm just going to scroll through because you just keep pushing your pawns one by one. And yeah, this is where the game ended. And well, Sudeep just lagged in this position regardless. He's losing this game. So yeah, world-class play again from both the players. I think till move 35 or so, Sudeep was doing great, and he was actually holding the five-time world champion, former world champion Vishy Anand to a very equal position. And well, that is great play from him. And now we come to my thoughts about this. I really don't know what to say. It was just a sad sight. I was watching Anand live and he had to go through all this. It was so sad, so disheartening. He did not say a word. He kept everything inside him. He fought. He fought like we would expect him to fight, and he even won his games. It was really disheartening to see this. And yeah, it was not disrespectful just to Vishy. Actually, it was disrespectful to the game or sport of chess itself. Actually, we will not stop there. It was disrespectful to any sports person or any sport in that manner. Let it be chess, tennis, cricket, athletics, because, well, being unfair or cheating is not allowed in any of the sports, and usually you're disqualified or banned immediately. So yeah, it's just not acceptable. If you are into a sport, you got to be a sportsman. And actually, even if you're not into a sport in life, you have to be a sportsman. But we're talking about chess here, so yeah, you got to be a sportsman, dude. You got to be a sportsman. You just cannot do this. And yeah, guys, whoever watching this video, my humble request, please do not do this. Do not follow any unfair or unethical practices. No cheating, please. You don't get anywhere. It does not help you. It does not help your game. It does not help anything in any manner. It improves nothing at all. I mean, if you are playing a game, you lose in 10 moves, you lose in 15 moves, no problem. Improve on your mistakes and get better the next time. That is what life is about. We got to get better every single day in life. Life is about growing every single day, learning every single day, and well, that is it. And yeah, even if you do commit a mistake, that's fine. It happens. Everybody makes mistakes. We are humans after all. At least if you make a mistake, you got to accept your mistake. You got to own your mistake. You got to be honest about it. You got to have a sincere apology in this case. And we as compassionate human beings will definitely forgive you. We have space for that. And yeah, you should not commit the mistake again, and we all can move on. But Nikhil, his apology did not seem like an apology to me. It rather just seemed like he's trying to save himself. And well, yeah, that's all I'm going to say. Yeah, that's all. And about Sudeep and Sajid, well, they have not said anything as yet. As I've told you, this is something that came across a few hours back when I got up. And well, if they see anything, well, let's see what they say. But I mean, I don't really expect anything from anybody now. And actually, I wanted to end this video on a positive note, and that is talking about players like Arijit, Ritesh, Amir, who also played the simul against Vishy, and there were some more players too who played very fairly. So yeah, watching them play, all of them, was really nice because watching their moves, watching their facial expressions, and how much they were concentrating and playing and enjoying the game as a whole was really nice. And not just that, the way they got thrashed or got outplayed by Vishy was again very nice to see. And the way they took it in the right way, they were sportsmen. And not only that, they actually also very excited after the game because they played Anand, and they also wanted to see where they went wrong, and they wanted to see, how they could have played better. That was really a nice sight to see, and it kind of gave hope that the world is not going into the drain. But yeah, I just wanted to bring this up and end this video on a positive note that yes, the world does have good too. And yes, that's it. So if you have anything regarding this topic, you can post your comments in the comment section below. And if you did enjoy this video, then please, please, please do hit the like button. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we have a lot of educative content on our channel. Do check it out, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.